So in the last video, we calculated the taxes owed pretty much by hand, just used the calculator for the actual arithmetic. And you might have been wondering, well, we did a whole lot of bookkeeping on this problem. Is there any way we can get the calculator to do the hard bookkeeping work for us? And the answer, of course, is yes. Now, there are a lot of ways that we could do this. I'm going to do this in what I think is the most straightforward way. But there are other ways that you could do this. I'm going to use the table functions on the calculator. So I'm going to press the Stat button and go to Edit. Now, what I'm going to enter in the lists of my calculator. In my first list, I'm going to enter the tax rates. So 10, 12, 22, and 24. I'm only going to put in the ones that are relevant to my problem. So I'm only going to go up to 24 because I've already determined that this person is in the 24% tax bracket. Now in my second list, I'm going to put in the starting amounts for these tax brackets. So 0, 98.75, 40, 125, 85, 525. Now, in this class, we're presenting the tax brackets starting just before you start making money that's taxed at that level. If you look at a tax bracket that you've found elsewhere, it might start with the first dollar that's taxed at that level. So it might have 1 and then 98.76, 40, 126, etc. And 98.76. And the reason for that is complicated and historical. But if you see a tax bracket where the end of one bracket is the number right before the start of the next, remember before you do any math to subtract 1 from all of these numbers. So this first number is 0. If you see that it's 1, you want to reduce all of those numbers by 1. Otherwise, you'll be off by a little bit. Okay, so I've entered the beginnings of the tax brackets, and now I'm going to enter the end of what this person pays. Right, so for each row, I'm going to enter either this number or $100,000, whichever is less, right? Remember, $100,000 was this person's taxable income. So this tax bracket ends at 98.75. This tax bracket ends at 40, 125. This one ends at 85, 525. And this one, so this one ends at 163,000. But our person is making less than that. Our person is only making 100,000. So I've got my rates, my starting values for the tax bracket, and my ending values for the tax bracket. Okay. Now what do I do? Well, I need to convert my rates to a percent. Right, I just entered them the way I saw them in the table. Or rather, they're currently a percent. I need to convert them to decimals. And to do that, I'm going to divide by 100. So I'm going to say L1, which is second followed by the number 1, divided by 100, and I'm going to store that back in L1. And now when I go back to edit, you can see instead of 10, 12, 22, 24, I have 0.1, that's 0.10, right? But we don't need the trailing 0. 0.12, 0.22, and 0.24. You can also just enter them as decimals directly off the top of your head if you want. If you find you sometimes make mistakes when converting percents, just do the division. Alright, now I need to find the ending value minus the starting value. So I'm going to take my ending values are in L3 minus my starting values are in L2. And I need to store this somewhere. I need to store this in a list. I could use another list that I haven't used yet, but I'm just going to go ahead and store it in L2 so I have that on screen. And now I actually don't need what's in L3, so I'm going to go up here and clear out L3. Notice now that these numbers that we got are these numbers that we got by hand. Right, so now to find the taxes owed, I'm going to take the rates times the amounts. Right, so I want to take L1 times L2, and that gives me a list containing all of my different taxes owed amounts, right? I've got the 987.50, the 36.30, looks like the start of the 99.88. In this form, that's not very useful to me. What do I want to do with that? I want to add them all up. So I'm going to go into my list functions by pressing second stat to get the list. Math. Sum. I want to get the sum of this L1 times L2. L1 times L2. And that gives me my taxable income, my $18,079.50. Should you do this with the calculator, or should you do it with a table on your paper? You should do whichever one seems easiest to you. I like to do this on the calculator because I know that my most common mistake is to make a copying error in a process like this. So doing this on the calculator prevents me from making copying mistakes. In the videos where I work through a homework problem, I'm going to be doing this on the calculator because it's a lot faster. But you can use whichever method you like better.